Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well and having a great Monday night. In tonight's forecast update, we're going to be talking still about our ongoing severe weather threat tonight, just briefly, and we'll be just kind of breaking down what's going on right now across these areas, especially up into the upper Midwest. And we still do have that moderate risk in place across some of these states, and we'll get to that in just one moment. But we'll talk about that, and then we'll move on to our severe weather risk for tomorrow on Tuesday, as well as our risk for Wednesday. And so that'll be the main topic for tonight's video. Once again, just kind of covering our severe weather threats. But I will have timestamps up in the video, so feel free to skip to any part y'all want to see. If y'all are watching this on Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, then just disregard the discussion about our severe weather threat tonight. But if you still want to see that, that's perfectly fine. But once again, just skip forward to the Tuesday and Wednesday severe weather discussion if you want to see that and the timestamp. But let's go and get started tonight with our update. So as you can see, the latest 01Z update has came out, and so we still have a moderate risk of severe weather occurring across southeast Minnesota into Wisconsin and into northeast Iowa. Around that is an enhanced risk, and also an enhanced risk down there into Texas and Oklahoma. Around that is a large slight risk and a pretty large marginal risk surrounding those areas. And so the risk for tornadoes is still going to continue for the next several hours as we get further into night, even into tomorrow, very early tomorrow on Tuesday, but still during the nighttime hours. And still with our wind risk as well, that is still there as those lines of storms move to the east, along with our hail threat as well, is still very much there. And the threat for large hail is evident across much of the Midwest as well as the south central U.S., but really across the central U.S. as a whole. And so if we look back here and go to the Storm Prediction Center homepage here, so if you look at some of our watches right now, we still have a couple of tornado watches still in effect. So the most recent one is this Tornado Watch 185, and this will expire at 2 a.m. Central Daylight Time. And so this is across extreme southeastern Minnesota into extreme northeastern Iowa, and then across much of central Wisconsin. And so the threat for tornadoes is at a moderate risk across these areas, especially as this kind of line here, as you can see on our radar image, you can see that line, and that will continue to kind of drift eastward with time. And once again, the threat for tornadoes will be evident, not evident, but will be the case along this line. And so if you look at our previous watch here, we do have another severe thunderstorm watch into Iowa there as well. We'll go back a little bit more. Looking at our other tornado watch, this is Tornado Watch 183. And so this is across Iowa, northwestern Missouri, and then into Kansas as well. The threat for tornadoes is high with this. And this tornado watch will expire at 12 a.m. Central Daylight Time tonight. So that is all for our tornado watches and just a severe thunderstorm watch. All the other watches before that will expire pretty soon, so I will not be covering that. But if you look at our storm reports here, I've not really heard a whole lot about tornadoes occurring yet. I think there have been a couple that have occurred tonight, but there have not been any tornado reports, thankfully. But plenty of hail reports and wind reports as well for tonight already. But now, looking at our Tuesday severe weather risk on the 29th of April. And so we do have an enhanced risk up here into the upstate New York, into Pennsylvania, Ohio, along with another one down here into Texas and into a small section of Oklahoma. And that is also going to be in a very broad slight risk across much of the Ohio Valley into the mid-south and south-central U.S. up here into the Great Lakes states as well. We do have a 5% tornado risk down here into Texas and Oklahoma. excuse me, along with a 2% risk in the dark green color. Then up here into the parts of the Northeast and Ohio Valley, we do have a 2% risk up here. Then looking at our wind risk, we do have a 30% wind risk up here into New York State, Pennsylvania, and into Ohio, and then a large 15% risk in the yellow color, and also a hatch risk down here into Oklahoma and Texas, where we could see a significant damaging winds in that area with the hatched dashed lines there. And then around that, once again, is a 5% wind risk in the dark brown color. And then finally, looking at our hail risk, we do have a 30% hail risk into Oklahoma and Texas once again, and a 15% risk around that in the yellow, and also a hatch risk which covers the entire 30% risk and into parts of the 15% risk, and that means a 10% or greater probability of 2-inch diameter hail or larger occurring within this area in the hatched lines. And then looking up here into New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, we have a 15% risk up here, and also a very large 5% wind risk once again for tomorrow on Tuesday. And now finally looking at our risk for Wednesday, April 30th. And so we do have a slight risk into Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas at this range. And then we also have a level 1 out of 5 marginal risk in the dark green color into quite a bit of the Ohio Valley, parts of the Mississippi Valley, really, that is, and then into portions of the south central U.S. once again for Wednesday. Now looking at some of our models, and we will be looking at the 0Z NAM model. And so for tonight, obviously, we do have this large, broad jet streak across the Midwest, and as you can see, a pretty broad area of 60 to 70 knot mid-level 60 to 70 knots of mid-level flow across these areas, and still across much of the central U.S. as well. And that would obviously bring our severe weather threat down further to the south as well, besides that moderate risk being up here. So that is why we have our severe weather risk for tonight. And then as you get into tomorrow on Tuesday, and you get further into the day here, so as you can see, we still have kind of our area associated with tonight's mid-level flow. That jet streak moves across portions of the Great Lakes, and then you have a little bit more amplified flow across some of these areas still, and that would basically lead us to that enhanced risk across these areas. And so if we look further to the west, we have our other kind of actual little main trough out here into the somewhat southwestern U.S. And then that would help to bring our other mid-level flow across the south central U.S. And that would once again be responsible for that enhanced risk across some of these areas tomorrow on Tuesday into Oklahoma and Texas. So that will continue on as you get into Tuesday night, and then that goes into Wednesday morning eventually. And so the NAM doesn't quite go out as far, so we'll go look at the HRRR just briefly. And so if we look here and we go to Wednesday, you can see that trough slowly making its way to the east. And once again, you have a pretty decent area of 500 at your 500 millibar level, but you have a pretty decent area of 50 plus knots of mid-level flow, and that will help to bring a severe weather threat for Wednesday across some of those areas. So now if we look a little bit closer for tomorrow's severe weather threat, I will look at the kind of northeastern U.S. real quick here. And so if we look at the HRRR still, and we'll look at our moisture, and so looking at our dew points here for tomorrow on Tuesday, and we'll look at the NAM in just a moment. So as you can see, about midday tomorrow, you already have your dew point, your moisture rising into these areas, and dew points getting into, in some cases, the mid 60s, even upper 60s. Continuing that on even further as you move into tomorrow evening, you still have a pretty broad area of dew points into the low 60s. That'll get the job done for severe weather. And so the reason we have a tornado risk up here as well is because we still have a pretty decent low level jet tomorrow evening into tomorrow night. And so if we get to into tomorrow evening, you still have a 40, 50 knot low level jet across these areas, and that will be plenty enough for storms to kind of tap into, you could say, or use to their own advantage when having the capability to produce tornadoes. And so, lastly, if we look at McClure Cape on the HRRR, and we'll go to about kind of tomorrow afternoon. So you can see instability into plenty of instability, that is, into Ohio, even Pennsylvania, and some into New York State. As you get further into the evening, those storms will eat up at that instability, but you'll still have plenty there for those storms by tomorrow evening across these areas. So you're not really going to have a significant lack of instability, but these storms will kind of start out somewhat as kind of pulse storms. They'll just pop up. Some will be semi-discrete, but then they'll kind of move into a linear cluster type event across these areas. And so I think this is where we could see our greatest tornado potential after these storms are able to mature a little bit more tomorrow evening, and you will have plenty of low level flow across these areas. And definitely there'll be a wind threat once again as these lines move to the east across these areas into the northeast. And so most of these storms should be gone by about late tomorrow night into early on Wednesday. And the peak of that should probably be around, I would say, sometime tomorrow evening into tomorrow night. So definitely keep an eye on that if you live in those areas. And so now if we move down towards the south central US and look at these same things for tomorrow, look at our dew points as well. And so you'll have plenty of moisture still available into these areas because you're having a kind of flow moisture up into these areas from the Gulf today, and so still plenty of moisture will be there tomorrow on Tuesday. There will be no shortage of that, but still looking here on the HRRR model. I hate using the same model for everything, but I've just been trying to use the HRRR because it has been pretty decent lately, but I still want to compare some of the models. But it's not as bad as you are within 24 hours of it occurring. But if you get maybe ever a day and a half, 2 days, that's when you really start to have to compare models a lot more. But still, it's always good to compare models the day of when it happens. But staying on track here, going back to this, excuse me. Like I was saying, plenty of moisture into these areas tomorrow on Tuesday. And if we look at our low level jet here across these areas, you will have that low level jet obviously decrease quite a bit during the day, but as you get into the evening hours, that's when you could see a subtle increase, especially into tomorrow night across these areas. Some this triple R wants to show some kind of areas of maybe 30, 40, 50 knots of low level flow. I think this is just showing maybe because of a storm showing kind of this little area here, just a little mesoscale kind of disturbance there. I don't really know why it's showing that, but still you have some areas saying 20 to 30, even 40 knots of level flow by tomorrow evening. And if you look at your moisture right about this time, you still have plenty of moisture. And I think what the HRRR is just showing is some sort of MCS potentially across these areas. So we'll look at that in just a moment with our composite reflectivity, but still plenty of moisture there, as I've been saying. So if we look at our reflectivity, you're going to have some storms tomorrow morning across the across Oklahoma, into Kansas, even Missouri as well. But as you get into tomorrow afternoon, you will have somewhat some development of semi-discrete storms that may turn into more clusters, and so the uh, the HRRR does show kind of an MCS. You could kind of call this an MCS, maybe here by tomorrow evening into tomorrow night across Oklahoma and Texas, and that would bring us to well, that would be the reasoning behind our wind risk issued by the Storm Prediction Center, is because it is showing some of these clusters and maybe an MCS tomorrow evening. So keep an eye on that as well if you live in these areas. Maybe another MCS showing up late Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, but we'll have to continue to watch that for sure. I'm not saying that's going to happen for sure. But if we look at the NAM finally now and compare it a little bit more for Tuesday, tomorrow, same idea, somewhat of a semi-discrete storm mode to begin with, and that turns into clusters. It kind of does show an MCS as well, maybe around the same time frame, a little bit further to the west, but it does fizzle that out quite quickly, and then tries to get something else by late tomorrow night into early on Wednesday, into the morning hours on Wednesday. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. Still, there's a lot to continue to watch here and figure out as we get throughout the next 24 hours. But if we take a little bit of a broader look at this, so we can include everybody, because I don't like just including one specific area. So if we look at the HRRR once again for Tuesday, you can see some storms already up here into the kind of southern Ohio Valley. About midday, once again, still with our storms up here into Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, but already by the early afternoon hours, you could see some development of storms up here into Illinois, Indiana, as well, even into Kentucky. And what we'll do actually is just zoom in into some of these areas real quick so we can include them. We'll look at the Ohio Valley. And so if we go to, once again, midday Tuesday, you can see all of our storms out here. And once again, just a pretty broad view here. And you can see maybe some isolated storms getting developed out here into Kentucky, Tennessee even. And that should change into more of a linear threat as you get into tomorrow evening and to tomorrow night, just like with the threat up here to the north. But the threat for tornadoes will be significantly less down here further to the south, because you won't have a low-level jet, much of a low-level jet that is in place, and that won't be really favorable for tornadoes. And even as you get into very early on Wednesday morning, you may have some clusters and just a kind of a big blob of rain and thunderstorms across Arkansas, Missouri, and eastern Oklahoma, once again, maybe early on Wednesday, but we'll have to keep watching that as well. But really, that's going to be about it for our Tuesday discussion. And just real quick, we'll look at our threat for Wednesday. And so if we look at the GFS here, and we look at our moisture across the south central U.S. once again, going into Wednesday, still the GFS actually shows pretty decent moisture return, across East Texas and into southern Oklahoma. So we'll have to watch that as well, even into Arkansas, western Arkansas, maybe dew points even into the low 70s. So plenty of moisture once again for Wednesday. If you look at our low-level jet here on the GFS for Wednesday, you have a pretty decent low-level jet on Wednesday into Wednesday evening, and across East Texas, eastern Oklahoma, maybe a 30 to 40 knot low-level jet, even into Arkansas, maybe 30, 40 knot low-level jet into Louisiana as well. So keep that in mind for Wednesday's severe weather threat. Once again, we'll continue to monitor this and see how this plays out. But really, that's all we're going to really discuss right now for Wednesday's severe weather threats in tonight's forecast update. So that'll be it for tonight's update. I appreciate all of y'all watching, and I'll probably have another video out maybe sometime this week. If I'm not able to get one out within the next couple of days, I'll have one out by this weekend. I hope y'all continue to stay safe tonight and really throughout the next couple of days with our severe weather threats. But once again, please continue to stay safe tonight and make sure you have a way to receive warnings, because we will still have just as high as a threat as you get into the nighttime hours tonight as we did earlier. So continue to stay weather aware and updated on your alerts so you can be prepared to have a plan to escape or move to a safe location if needed. But once again, I appreciate all of y'all watching, and I hope y'all have a great rest of y'all's week.